Have you ever wondered why you love the way you do? Why some people cling desperately to affection, while others push it away even when they secretly crave it? Why you may find yourself repeating the same painful patterns in relationships as if trapped in a cycle you never signed up for? The truth is this: your heart was programmed long before you even knew what love was. Your childhood, those early years where you absorbed every smile, every silence, every word, every wound, left fingerprints on your soul. And those fingerprints, whether gentle or jagged, continue to shape the way you connect, the way you trust, and the way you love. We think love is spontaneous. We think it's chemistry, attraction, fate. But the way you attach to another person is not random. It's a blueprint, crafted in the quiet corners of your earliest memories. From the very beginning of your life, before you could even speak or understand the meaning of words, you were already learning the language of love. Not through lessons, not through books, but through the everyday actions of the people who raised you. Every smile, every embrace, every time you were picked up or ignored when you cried, all of these moments began to teach you what to expect from love. Your childhood quietly carved a blueprint, and whether you realize it or not, you've been carrying that blueprint into every relationship you've ever had. Think about this. When a baby cries and the mother consistently responds, the baby begins to believe the world is safe, that people can be trusted, and that love is a reliable force. But if that same cry is often ignored or met with coldness, the baby learns a different story. That love is uncertain, that affection is conditional, and that depending on someone is dangerous. Without ever putting it into words, the child's heart absorbs a lesson. This is how love works. And those early lessons don't stay locked in the past. They follow you. They influence how you reach for closeness, how you react when someone pulls away, how you interpret silence, and how you define commitment. When you grew up, you probably thought you were making independent choices in relationships. You thought you were following your instincts, but those instincts were trained in childhood. If you find yourself clinging tightly to someone, terrified of being left, that's not random. It's a child inside you who learned that love can disappear at any moment, and so you must hold on with all your strength. If you notice that you keep pushing people away, even the ones who love you, that too is not random. It's a child inside you who learned long ago that closeness was unsafe, that the safest way to survive was to stay guarded. If you find yourself calm, steady and open in love, able to trust and give without fear, that's also not random. It's the child inside you who was consistently cared for, who grew up believing that love is something stable and secure. This is why relationships often feel like déjà vu. You may notice yourself falling into the same painful dynamics, repeating the same patterns, even when you promise yourself you'll do better next time. It's not that you want to repeat the past, it's that your subconscious is pulling you back to what feels familiar. And familiarity, even when it hurts, feels safer than the unknown. You unconsciously gravitate toward partners who echo your early experiences because deep down your mind is trying to resolve what was left unfinished in childhood. If you grew up feeling abandoned, you may chase partners who are emotionally unavailable, trying to win from them the love you never got. If you grew up feeling dismissed, you may avoid intimacy altogether, convincing yourself that independence is strength, when in reality, it's a defense against the possibility of being hurt again. And here lies the subtle but powerful truth. The way you love is not simply a matter of personality or preference. It is the shadow of your past. When you crave constant reassurance, when you fear commitment, when you sabotage good relationships, these are not flaws you were born with. They are survival strategies carefully crafted by the child you once were, who only wanted to feel safe. You didn't choose them consciously, but they became your script, and you've been acting it out ever since. Yet, even though your childhood shaped your blueprint, it does not have to be the final design. Recognizing that your way of loving was shaped by early experiences is the first step toward freedom. It allows you to separate who you are now from who you had to be back then. You can begin to see that your clinginess is not neediness, but a wound waiting for security. You can recognize that your distance is not coldness, but a shield that once kept you safe. You can realize that your calmness is not luck, but the result of a foundation that supported you. When you see love through this lens, you stop blaming yourself for your patterns, and you start understanding them. But awareness is not enough. You must decide whether to keep living out the story written for you in childhood, or whether to pick up the pen and write a new one. You must be brave enough to notice when you are reacting as the child, not the adult. You must be willing to pause when you're about to chase or withdraw, and ask yourself, am I repeating the past, or am I creating a new future? This work is not easy. It requires patience, honesty, and often the courage to revisit painful memories. But the reward is immense. Because when you face the truth of how your childhood shaped you, you gain the power to reshape how you love today. And here's the final truth I want you to hold on to. Your childhood may have written the opening chapters of your story, but it does not own the ending. You are not doomed to repeat the same patterns forever. You are not trapped by the wounds of your past. You can break the cycle. You can learn to trust, to open, to love differently. But it begins with this realization. Your childhood shaped the way you love, but only you can decide whether it will continue to rule your future. So ask yourself, are you loving as the adult you are, or as the child you once were? Because the answer to that question will determine whether you repeat history or whether you finally rewrite it. When we talk about love, most people imagine it as an unpredictable force, a spark of chemistry, or a matter of chance. But love is not simply random. The way you give and receive love, the way you chase closeness or retreat from it, the way you interpret silence, affection, or conflict, all of it is patterned. And those patterns are not created in adulthood. They were shaped long ago in the tender years of childhood. Psychologists have discovered that these patterns can be understood as 4 distinct love styles, each one born from the emotional climate of a child's early world. The first is the secure love style, a child who grows up with parents or caregivers who are consistent, nurturing, and emotionally available learns a powerful lesson that the world is safe and that love can be trusted. This child grows into an adult who approaches relationships with calm confidence. They are not afraid to be close, nor are they terrified of being left. They can express their needs without shame and meet the needs of others without fear of losing themselves. Their love flows naturally because their earliest experiences taught them that affection is stable, dependable, and safe. When you meet someone with a secure love style, you often notice a quiet steadiness in the way they connect. They don't play games, they don't panic at silence, they don't run at the first sign of difficulty. Instead, they bring balance because love was modeled for them as something safe to embrace. But not every child grows up in such a steady environment. Some grow up in homes where love is inconsistent, sometimes absent, sometimes warm, sometimes cold. These children develop what we call the anxious love style. For them, love becomes a constant guessing game. As adults, they often cling tightly to their partners, desperate for reassurance. They may overanalyze every message, every word, every delay in response, convinced that rejection is hiding around the corner. It is not that they want to be needy. It is that their childhood taught them that love can vanish without warning, and so they fight to hold on with all their strength. Their hearts crave stability, but their minds were programmed to expect uncertainty, and so they become hyper alert to any sign of abandonment. Then there are children who learn another lesson entirely, children whose needs for comfort were often dismissed, ignored, or even criticized. These children grow into adults with an avoidant love style. Deep down, they crave intimacy, but they fear it just as deeply. They convince themselves they don't need anyone. That closeness is weakness. That independence is safety. In relationships, they may appear distant, detached, or overly self-reliant. They build walls, not because they don't want love, but because long ago they learned that needing someone was dangerous, that reaching out for comfort only led to disappointment. They may even push away the very people they desire most, not out of cruelty, but out of survival. The avoidant lover's heart whispers, "Don't get too close, you'll only get hurt." And then for some, the story is even more complex. These are the children whose early years were marked not just by inconsistency or neglect, but by fear. In their world, the very people who were supposed to provide safety were also a source of harm. These children develop what is called a fearful-avoidant or disorganized love style. As adults, they live in constant conflict. They crave closeness desperately, but when it comes, they feel overwhelmed, suspicious, or even terrified. They want intimacy, but they distrust it. They long for connection, yet they run from it. For them, love is a battlefield filled with longing and fear all at once. Their past has left them torn between two impulses: come close and stay away. This inner conflict can make their relationships turbulent, unpredictable, and exhausting. Not because they don't want love, but because love was tied to fear in their earliest experiences. These four love styles, secure, anxious, avoidant, and fearful, are not random personality quirks. They are echoes of childhood. They are survival strategies formed when you were too young to put your feelings into words. They are the blueprints you carry into adulthood, often without realizing it. And here is the truth: every argument, every misunderstanding, every pattern you notice in your relationships can usually be traced back to these early imprints. A secure person may wonder why their partner panics over small silences. An anxious person may not understand why their partner withdraws when things get serious. An avoidant person may not realize why they keep sabotaging intimacy. A fearful person may not grasp why they swing between desperate closeness and sudden distance. But when you see love styles for what they are, the stories written by your childhood, you begin to understand that none of this is random. And while these love styles can feel like permanent labels, they are not life sentences. Your childhood may have shaped the way you love, but it does not have to control it forever. Awareness is the first step toward change. When you recognize that your clinginess, your distance, or your inner conflict is not a flaw but a pattern, you give yourself the power to respond differently. You can learn to calm your anxious fears, to soften your avoidant walls, to stabilize your fearful push and pull, and to strengthen the security that lies dormant inside you. The truth is simple, but profound. Your love style is not who you are. It is who you learn to be. And because it was learned, it can also be unlearned. You can rewire the way you love. You can step out of the shadows of your past, and you can build relationships that are not dictated by fear or abandonment, but by trust, respect, and openness. So the next time you ask yourself why you love the way you do, remember this: your patterns are not random, and they are not permanent. They are childhood's fingerprints. And while you may not be responsible for how those fingerprints were made, you are responsible for how you use them now. You hold the power to transform them, to write a new story, and to finally love with freedom. There is a lie that many people carry deep inside them, a quiet voice that whispers, "Because of my past, I can never truly be happy in love." They believe that the mistakes of their parents, the absence of affection, the neglect, the inconsistency, or even the trauma of childhood have locked them into a destiny of broken relationships. They think that the way they loved yesterday is the way they will love tomorrow. But the truth is far more liberating. Your past may explain your patterns, but does not have to define your future. Think about it. When you were a child, you didn't get to choose how your parents treated you. You didn't get to decide whether they comforted you, ignored you, or frightened you. You didn't get to design the emotional environment you grew up in. But you do get to decide whether those experiences will continue to control your adult life. Your love style may have been shaped by what you lacked or received in childhood, but that love style is not set in stone. It is not a permanent mark. It is simply a script, and scripts can be rewritten. Healing begins with awareness. The moment you realize that the way you love is not random, but a reflection of your childhood, something inside you shifts. Suddenly, you stop blaming yourself for being too needy, too cold, or too complicated, you begin to see these patterns not as flaws in your personality, but as strategies you developed to survive when you were small. That anxious urge to cling was a child's way of holding on to love that felt uncertain. That avoidant wall was a child's way of protecting a heart that had been ignored. That fearful push and pull was a child's way of navigating love that was tied to fear. And that security, if you were lucky enough to have it, was a child's way of reflecting the consistency you received. None of these are permanent. They are simply echoes. Once you see the echo, you can choose whether to keep repeating it. This is where healing truly takes root. An anxious lover can learn to calm their racing thoughts, to find worth in themselves rather than waiting for another person to confirm it. They can practice self-soothing, reminding themselves that their value is not dependent on whether someone else stays or leaves. An avoidant lover can begin to soften the walls they built, slowly allowing vulnerability to feel less like a threat and more like an act of strength. They can practice opening up, risking closeness, and discovering that love does not always lead to pain. A fearful lover can begin to untangle the knot of craving and dread that drives their relationships. With time, therapy, or deep self-work, they can learn that intimacy is not always a battlefield, and that closeness can exist without fear. The power of this realization is that it shifts control back into your hands. You may not have been able to control how your parents treated you, but you can control how you treat yourself now. You can decide to nurture the child inside you who still longs for comfort, protection, and consistency. You can choose partners not based on old wounds, but on the person you are becoming. And in doing so, you can stop the cycle of pain from traveling into the next generation. Because if you do not heal your wounds, you will unconsciously hand them to your children, repeating the same blueprint you inherited. But if you heal, you create an entirely new legacy, one where love is not fear, not absence, not chaos, but safety, openness, and trust. Healing does not mean erasing the past. It does not mean pretending that what happened to you didn't matter. It means acknowledging the truth of your story while refusing to let it chain you down. It means learning to recognize the difference between the child's reaction and the adult's choice. It means pausing when you feel the urge to chase, to withdraw, or to run, and reminding yourself that you are no longer that powerless child. You are grown now. You have tools, you have awareness, you have freedom. And make no mistake, healing takes work. It takes confronting pain you would rather avoid. It takes patience when old habits return. It takes courage to trust when everything inside you screams to protect yourself. But the beauty of healing is that with each step forward, you feel less like a prisoner of your past and more like the author of your future. You begin to notice that you no longer panic when your partner is silent. You realize that you no longer push away someone who gets too close. You find that you can stay steady in moments that once triggered old fears. That is the evidence of growth. That is the proof that your past is not permanent. So if you have ever felt doomed to repeat your childhood, if you have ever wondered whether your patterns will haunt you forever, let me tell you this: you are not your wounds. You are not your parents' mistakes. You are not the neglect you endured nor the fear you carried. You are more than the sum of your childhood experiences. Yes, they shaped you. Yes, they left marks, but they do not get the final say. The final say belongs to you. You get to decide whether you will remain stuck in old patterns or step into new ones. You get to choose whether you will love with fear or with freedom. You get to write the ending of your story. And if you dare to heal, if you dare to face the truth of your past and grow beyond it, you will discover something extraordinary. That love is not just something you inherited. It is something you can rebuild, redefine, and finally experience in its purest form. Your past may explain you, but it does not define you. Your childhood may have shaped your first love story, but you hold the pen now. And if you choose to heal, your next chapter can be one of wholeness, trust, and love that finally feels safe. So when you step back and look at your life, you'll see that love has never been an accident. The way you love, the way you chase it, the way you run from it, the way you hold it. These are echoes of the past written by the child you once were. But you are no longer that child. You are not trapped in the story you inherited. You are the author now, and you can choose how the next chapter unfolds. Love is not about finding someone to fill the emptiness. It is about healing the emptiness so you can meet another with wholeness. Love is not about repeating the script your childhood gave you. It is about daring to write a new one where trust replaces fear, security replaces desperation, and connection replaces walls. If you take nothing else from this, remember this truth: your childhood may have shaped your blueprint, but it does not dictate your destiny. You hold the pen, you hold the power, and you can create a love story that finally feels safe, free, and real. The past explains you, but it does not define you. Your future is yours to write, so write it with love that heals, love that endures, and love that finally sets you free.